Aidan Hutchinson is fully cleared after coming back from the broken leg last year. I'd be very optimistic if I were a Detroit Lions fan about this. He really made a push to try and play in the Super Bowl if the Lions had made it that far. Obviously, they lost in the divisional round, which cut that recovery short. But there are some people around him who feel like that may be the best thing for him, that he was able to kind of take a step back, take a little bit more time with his rehab. And the level of care that he got, and I think the Lions deserve a lot of credit for this. Their head trainer, Brett Fisher, was on the ground and in the middle of all of this. The great care that Hutchinson took, that the Lions took, I think really illustrate why whenever the Lions decide to pay Aidan Hutchinson, and we'll get to that in a minute, it will be a safe investment for the team. And I've got two examples of things that were done during the course of the last few months to make sure that Aidan Hutchinson really is in the best place going forward. The first is really just kind of on his body composition. And this is the second time in the last few years that he had a very serious bone break. And so you go back to 2020, his junior year at the University of Michigan, he fractured his ankle in his other leg. And that was an injury that ended his junior season at Michigan, that led to him coming back for his senior year at Michigan in 2021. So you have a very serious, fractured ankle in 2020 that ends his season there. Then last year, 2024, he has the broken fibula and tibia. Now, he did get fortunate with that injury in that there wasn't any artery damage, there wasn't any ligament damage, there wasn't any nerve damage. It was a very, very clean break. But still, you have two very serious breaks happening on the field. You want to look a little bit more into that. And so one thing that they did do, the Lions did in conjunction with Aidan Hutchinson, is they had scans done to check his bone density. And the good news there is it doesn't look like he's got any propensity to having breaks. This was just a couple of strokes of bad luck, obviously really bad luck, but there is good luck on the back end that this was a really clean break. And it doesn't seem like he has any predisposition to this happening again. The second thing they did, and I think this part is really interesting, is he had blood work done to see what could be done to promote his recovery. And that helped set the course for his diet. That actually lines up with a lot of stuff that he's done over the course of the last 5 or 6 years. In fact, before the 2022 draft, I had a conversation with him about how he had really gone in on his diet and had really looked at ways to try to make sure that he was putting himself in the best position to be the best athlete he possibly could be. And he mentioned a pizza review that he did with Dave Portnoy, the founder of Barstool. And he actually admitted to me that he hadn't had pizza in forever. And it was something that he gave up as part of really going in on his diet, making sure he was doing everything that he could to be the best athlete he possibly could be, adopted a lot of things from the TB12 method. And this is another example of him doing everything that he can to put himself in the best position to be the very best football player he possibly can be. The overall point, though, right, when you talk about doing the scans on his bones, when you talk about doing the blood work, is this is a guy who's all in on his football career. And if I were the Lions right now, seeing the way he worked to try to get back for the Super Bowl, seeing the way he's handled his rehab since, seeing that he's here now and looks like he's full throttle and ready to go. And I'm not going to say it's going to be as if nothing happened, but sort of feels like that's the place that they're in right now, would make me feel really good about investing back into him with a big long-term contract. And it is worth noting that the Lions just went down this road with the first pick of the Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell era. Penei Sewell was a top 10 pick in 2021. That was the first draft for Holmes and Campbell. And the Lions rewarded him at the earliest juncture they possibly could. They didn't go into the fourth year of his rookie contract. They, of course, had the fifth-year option on top of that with 2 years left on his contract. They go in and they redo Penei Sewell and they take care of him long-term. So the precedent has been set there. Sewell's deal got done. I would think that the Lions, who haven't gotten far with Hutchinson's people yet, I would think that the Lions are going to go in on Hutchinson the same way they went in on Sewell. And of course, then the question becomes whether or not the average per year, whether or not that number starts with a 3 or a 4. Hutchinson's camp may want to wait until after Micah Parsons' deal gets done. We already have a $40 million contract on the books with an edge rusher in Myles Garrett. So you would think that that's going to be somewhere in the $40 million per year range. And again, if I'm the Lions, It's a lot of money, of course, for any player, but I would feel good about that money being invested well based on how Aidan Hutchinson is handling everything and based on the year that he was having before he got hurt in 2024.